1973. Spencer Silver is trying to invent the world's strongest adhesive. What he gets instead is a disaster. It sticks, but not completely. You peel it off. It leaves no mark. You stick it again. It holds again. Useless. Completely, embarrassingly useless. DuPont passed. His own team at 3M passed. For years, Silver walked the hallways showing this broken glue to anyone who would listen. Nobody cared. Until a colleague of his was sitting in church choir practice, and his bookmark kept falling out of his hymn book. Every single page. And something clicked. What if I put Silver's stupid glue on a piece of paper? Today, 50 billion of them are manufactured every year. You probably have one on your desk right now. And all of it exists because one man's experiment completely, spectacularly failed. Spencer Silver wasn't the kind of scientist who cut corners. He was methodical, patient, and genuinely brilliant. The kind of researcher who showed up to the lab before anyone else and left after everyone had already gone home for dinner. In 1968, 3M, the massive American manufacturing company, gave him a straightforward assignment. They needed a stronger, more reliable adhesive for industrial use. Aerospace contracts were on the table. The pressure was real. Silver threw himself into the work. He experimented with a new class of chemical compounds called acrylate copolymer microspheres, tiny, pressure-sensitive spheres that could bond to surfaces when pressed. The idea was to create something that would lock on and never let go. What he created instead was a glue that locked on, and then politely let go whenever you asked it to. It didn't leave residue. It didn't damage surfaces. It could be repositioned over and over again without losing its stickiness. And it was, by every definition of his original assignment, a complete failure. Silver knew it. His managers knew it. And for the next several years, the compound sat in a drawer at 3M headquarters in Minnesota, waiting for someone to figure out what on earth to do with it. But Silver, and this is the part that actually matters, refused to throw it away. Here's something they don't tell you about big companies. They are absolutely terrible at recognizing ideas that don't fit a category they already understand. Spencer Silver spent the better part of 5 years doing what could only be described as an internal PR campaign for his own failed glue. He gave seminars inside 3M. He wrote internal memos. He cornered colleagues in hallways and made them touch samples of the adhesive just to prove how interesting it was. The response, consistently and almost universally, was, "That's fascinating, Spencer. So what does it actually do?" And Silver didn't have a clean answer. He knew the adhesive was special. He could feel it the way inventors feel things before they can prove them, but he couldn't point to a single product and say, This is what it's for." One colleague suggested it could be used as a bulletin board coating, so papers could be pressed onto walls without pins. 3M actually produced a few of these boards and quietly released them to the market. They sold modestly. Nobody was particularly excited. The glue continued to wait. Now here's where the story gets genuinely strange and genuinely human. Art Fry was a chemical engineer at 3M and a devoted member of his local church choir in Minnesota. Every Sunday, he would tuck small paper bookmarks between the pages of his hymn book to mark the songs for that week's service. And every Sunday, without fail, those bookmarks would flutter to the floor at the worst possible moment, mid-song, mid-prayer, or right as the congregation fell into a particularly solemn silence. It was, by his own description, a minor and deeply personal annoyance. But one Sunday in 1974, sitting in the pew with yet another fallen bookmark at his feet, Fry's mind drifted back to a seminar he had attended at 3M, one of Silver's many internal presentations about the repositionable adhesive that nobody wanted. And the thought arrived fully formed, the way the best ideas always do. What if the bookmark had the glue on it? Not a permanent glue, not something that would tear the page when you removed it. Something that would hold just enough and release just enough to mark a place without destroying it. The next morning, Fry walked into the 3M lab and started making prototypes. The early versions were rough. Getting Silver's adhesive to coat only one strip of a small piece of paper, consistently, at scale, was a genuinely difficult engineering problem. Fry spent months refining the application process, working through weekends, reportedly setting up a small production machine in his own basement when the lab wasn't available. 3M's marketing team, when presented with the first proper prototype in 1977, was skeptical in the way that only marketing teams can be. Thoroughly, confidently, and incorrectly. They ran consumer tests. The results were underwhelming. People weren't sure they needed a sticky piece of paper. Nobody was walking around in 1977 thinking, you know what my life is missing? A small yellow square that I can write on and stick to things. So 3M did something unusual. They flooded the offices of Boise, Idaho with free samples and told people to just use them, figure it out for themselves. The reorder requests started coming in almost immediately. By 1980, the Post-it note was in national distribution across the United States. By 1981, it was in Europe and Canada. Within a decade, it had become one of the best-selling office products in the history of the world, and it has never stopped selling since. Spencer Silver spent 6 years carrying an idea that nobody wanted, through corridors full of people who were politely, professionally sure that he was wasting their time. He was right, and they were wrong, and the only difference between those two outcomes was that he never convinced himself the thing in his hands had no value, even when he couldn't yet explain exactly what that value was. The next time someone tells you your idea doesn't fit any category they recognize, that might not be a reason to stop. That might be the whole point. Subscribe, because next week, we're going into another accidental discovery that started with a man who was trying to do something completely different and ended up changing the way the entire world fights infection.